I'm not sure Ineos have made the club any better, maybe possibly worse. I think Fernandes wants to leave, for example, Bruno Fernandes. But if you ask me between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick, I think Carrick is the best one. There is money for Carrick. I still think that United have never had a heavyweight manager at the top of his game since Ferguson. Instinctively, if I think about him compared to Maresca, I instinctively think Alonso is better and be more suited to City.
Welcome to The Window on talkSPORT, brought to you by Intuit Quickbooks. Save time and unlock growth with integrated business tools and AI automation all in one place. So we are well and truly into this transfer window. So to get the latest, we have got the Guardian's Jamie Jackson. Jamie, good to speak to you. I'm going to guess, I know that you cover Manchester United and Manchester City. Been a bit of a busy week.
It has, basically since City played Chelsea actually on the Sunday week, and the news broke that I did a story in the Guardian basically saying his job could be in peril, it was in danger at Amorim's, and here we are, as you sort of say, 8 or 9 days later, and it's been a whirlwind. They always are, though, these managers sort of sackings or removals, aren't they? You know what I mean? You have to sort of like just keep up with them somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to managers, Manchester United have their new interim manager in Michael Carrick. I know that you've covered a lot of Manchester United comings and goings. So what have you made of the Amorim sacking and this interim manager search where you've basically got to be a club ambassador to get a look in?
Well, if we rewind all the way back to the pre-Leeds United press conference on the Friday, when I gave him a bit of a grilling, Amorim, and sort of ended up getting him to say, "You are very smart," which actually was in response to me sort of saying, "Oh, has Jason Wilcox had a word with you?" That sort of triggered him. Now, the reason I mentioned that is because before that press conference, there was a bust up with Wilcox.
Yes.
With regard to team formation, all the rest of it, everything surrounding Amorim. Now, the reason why I'm answering it this way, Angelina, is was Wilcox wise to do that? Because we know what that then happened. But what happened, sorry. He wasn't happy by Amorim, being told this by Wilcox. Came into that press conference, said that to me. Then we fast forward to Leeds, Ellen Road, after the game. He said all this stuff, including the scouting department and the football director has to do their job and will stay away from me. I'm the manager. And they were then sort of given no choice but to sack him. So was Wilcox wise? Because it didn't look like they had a plan for a start for the interim, yes, for the sort of replacement for him to be sacked, because it's sort of taken 9 days, or certainly the whole process by the time it was announced yesterday. It's a bit of a mess, really.
It doesn't seem like there was a plan at all, does there?
Not at all. I mean, the club generally is in a bit of disarray. I mean, I'm not sure Ineos have made the club any better, maybe possibly worse. I think Fernandes wants to leave, for example, Bruno Fernandes. That nearly happened last summer. They could have got 100 mil. Amorim wanted him. The hierarchy kind of would have sold him. Fernandes, I thought that was a good deal. Obviously, it's up to Fernandes as well, but Amorim wanted him. Now the guy who wanted Fernandes is gone. The club captain's probably going to leave post-World Cup. And Michael Carrick comes in. I think he probably... I actually, my personal opinion, I thought maybe Fletcher might have been given it just because he was the guy inside the club. He'd been the technical director, which was Jason Wilcox's first job. He'd been a first-team coach under Ole Solskjaer with Carrick. He's now sort of leading the under-18s in the academy. Why not give it to him? Isn't that what he's sort of being
prepped for?
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. But if it came to
Zidane was at Real Madrid almost when he came in. He'd already been doing kind of the legwork behind the scenes, yeah.
Guardiola at Barcelona, if you want to go all the way back to 2008, he was the B team manager. Obviously, these 3 people are all very good players for the clubs we're talking about. But if you ask me between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick, I think Carrick is the best one, just because I know it's easy to say this, and I certainly wrote this piece, as many others did. If it went wrong, then everyone would be saying, why did you go back to Ole? So I think fair play, give it to Michael Carrick. The only thing I'd say is, from what I understand, I didn't see lots of his Middlesbrough teams, but apparently his in-game substitutions lack imagination.
Yes, I've heard this as well.
This is the piece written by our North East correspondent for The Guardian. In-game substitutions a bit lacking imagination. Also, he sticks to a very rigid tactical plan and doesn't like to change. Sound familiar?
Yes, it sounds like Amorim 2.0. But yeah, I heard similar things, and I think the substitutions, I mean, I remember with Eric Ten Hag, the substitutions were driving people insane. So Fans won't be happy about that. And this whole system, I mean, I guess for the Man United hierarchy, as long as he's not playing three at the back, they're not too fussed, I guess. But this whole situation as well, Sir Alex Ferguson being in the mix, despite being relieved of these ambassador duties, was
Yes.
reportedly in meetings regarding Carrick's appointment and also reportedly recommended Carrick over Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, how influential is he still at the club?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's an interesting. This came up because also Fletcher had this amazing quote. I thought I could not believe when it came out of the press conference. I think it was ahead of Burnley, or maybe it was the Brighton game, when he said, in essence, not in essence, he said, "Yeah, of course, I called Ferguson, and at the point at which I was appointed the sort of 2-game interim manager, but also I go to him for basically anything in life." And I was thinking, that's fair enough, but why have you said that publicly? Because it feeds into basically the point maybe you're making about Ferguson having a say on Carrick. And he's a genius. You're a fan. You don't need me to tell you what an amazing manager he was. But his time has been and gone. The club is kind of, partially quite a lot built by him. There's a big stand there. I get that you can't escape it. I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's wise for this stuff to come out publicly, because immediately it just seems, in front of the players, by the way, primarily, who are the most important people because they're the ones who win or lose games. It just seems that yet another manager is sort of not his own person. I always remember David Moyes, when he first went in as Ferguson's replacement, immediate replacement, first replacement, sort of sat in the manager's chairs, which was Ferguson, and his quote was something like, "I felt a bit stupid sitting in, how dare I sit in Ferguson's chair?" I think, was it Ollie said he didn't like to park in his car park or something like, sorry, in his car park space, something like that. I mean, get over him. I don't think he would advise them to sort of be talking like that.
Yeah, it feels like they're almost too dependent. And like you say, Alex Ferguson, absolute legend. And I think that there have been some people saying, he's hanging around like a bad smell and all that stuff. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it does seem like they are a little bit too dependent, in that he's been gone a while now, and the fact that you keep kind of going back to it does feel like they're maybe a bit dependent.
100%. Yeah. I mean, listen, they get asked the question, they're going to be respectful. I get that. I just think there might be a cuter way of answering it, because, as I say, I'm talking about what does a manager live or die by? Results, obviously. Who gets your results? Players. So, how those comments potentially going to play before some of those sort of players? Is this guy strong enough? I mean, Carrick now has 17 games, right? Yeah, that's what's left in the league to basically, get United a European place. Now, imagine if he gets, say, Champions League, right? Will they sack him? They may well do. But it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? And this is why I thought it's a little bit of a red herring, this whole thing about Solskjaer. Maybe part of the reason why he got turned down was because he wanted the job full-time. Because I would have thought that take care of itself. If you've done so well, has to get, say, Champions League berth, which is probably actually the only thing that can happen now for this to be a consideration, then there'd be a natural conversation about whether, in this case, we would keep Solskjaer, or Carrick. But, I think they're after Tuchel and De Zerbi. Those are two names I hear as the faves. I don't know what you think about that. I think Tuchel knows his stuff. He did kind of turn him down previously when they looked like they were going to sack Ten Hag before the FA Cup finals. What was it, May 2024? Going back a couple of years, you remember they met him in Monaco and all the rest of it. But yeah, so, heavyweight manager. I still think that United have never had a heavyweight manager at the top of his game since Ferguson. So Mourinho went in there, but I think he was over the hill a little bit.
Yeah.
Van Gaal the same. And then after that, you're looking at sort of people with potential on the way up. So can United actually get a guy who is, like everyone wants him sort of thing, and he's sort of, I don't know, but that would be my sort of, if they ever asked my advice, I'd tell you what.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the Thomas Tuchel thing is quite interesting because, he's going to be at the World Cup, hopefully until late July, rather than being there on the 1st of June to just crack on. But as we're starting to understand with Manchester United, he would be a head coach, not a manager. So maybe wouldn't be needed until July. And do you look at someone like Thomas Tuchel? Like I've interviewed Thomas Tuchel, and he seems like no nonsense guy, and he wants what he wants. And will he answer to someone like Jason Wilcox? Will he look at him and think, hang on a minute, I've just been with England at the World Cup, hopefully getting them, quite far. I've had success with Chelsea. I've had success across my managerial career. And you're going to tell me you think you're the manager, and I've got to kind of come to you cap in hand. That's my only concern. And I guess this whole thing around Jason Wilcoxon, if he can be trusted to get this right, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe will run out of patience with him, because if managers don't want to go because of him, it could be an issue.
Yeah, so you're so right. I should have maybe mentioned this. This is the big thing, and in a way, you've got to respect Amrin for turning around and saying, "No, I'm not going to take this," which is in essence what he said. Because why are you paying, in this example, 9 or 10 million to a guy to be basically, the manager if you're not going to allow him to manage, which is what he was saying. And so, yeah, you are so correct about Tuchel, and what you just said. The point you made there about Ratcliffe, I've made this point a couple of times in writing. Already he's been made to look a chump, I would say 2 or 3 times by Wilcox Barada. First time was the Ten Hag sacking, non-sacking. Second time was over the Ashworth thing, which was Barada's appointment, and Ashworth turned around and said, "I'm not too sure about Amarin," and then cut a long story short, off he goes. And now Amarin, this is our guy. He plays 3-4-3. Oh, don't worry about it. Actually, we do worry about it because 18 months later, whatever it is, gone. So this is the problem, and what I wonder here is actually the issue Ratcliffe? In the end, is it Ratcliffe, the structure he's put in place, and because he sort of de facto runs the club, even though he does have Barada and Wilcox in place, does he actually, run the club? And as long as he's there, unless there is a change in policy, I've never thought a director of football, in the sense that we're talking about, works. Why would it? Guardiola has one at City, but he's the director of football. He's the one who sort of calls the shots. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do but what he does.
And it's the same with Arteta, and it's the same with, someone like Unai Emery. And I think we've discussed it on Inside Devils, that there's a reason why those 3 teams are competing at the top of the table, because of their structure and the fact that their managers are managers and do get a say.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, to really sort of make the point, Jason Wilcox was going up to Sir Alex Ferguson after just won the treble and said, "You know what? No, or in summer 2003, wherever it was. No, I don't think you should be signing that young lad Cristiano Ronaldo. Well, yeah, okay, Jay. There's not a chance, is it? Yeah. But I exaggerate to make the point. It's the same point you're making about Emery and Arteta. You 100%. It's just sort of common sense, really. I would have thought.
Yeah, exactly. And, moving away from the managerial situation, I agree. It seems like De Zerbi, Tuchel are the names in the mix. Regarding the players, you touched on Bruno Fernandes earlier. Do you think that he is just looking at this situation like, I was potentially going to go last season? I feel like the hierarchy are a bit like, if you want to leave, that's okay with me. Maybe he feels a little bit disrespected. Now there's no Amarim. It is feeling like a bit of a circus. And you think that this will probably be the end of his time at the club?
I mean, you never know in football, because Maguire was nearly out of the club to West Ham that summer, whenever that was. But what I would say is I think it'd be probably a massive surprise if he doesn't leave now after the World Cup. I think he might have gone. I mean, it just seems this is the problem when you've got a club that's kind of in disarray. It just has such a knock-on effect to everything. So what I'm trying to say is, if the manager in place was good and was going to stay there for a long time, then Fernandes mainly, in this case it's Amrin who's left. If Amrin was still there and you were sort of at the top of the table challenging, he'd be happy. Fernandes, he would have because he's sort of suffered the last 5 or 6 years there.
And he's going back to the square one almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, he's sort of seen all these managers come and go. So it's all a symptom of the sort of fact that the club's in disarray. So I think I would be surprised if he's still there, as I say. And, you just wonder what the recruitment's going to be like in the summer. It's the other thing you mentioned there about the World Cup is I'm not sure Tuchel would be able to go into United, sort of in August, basically, wouldn't it? After the World Cup, and sort of, would he want to do that? And maybe that's the same for other managers, because the sort of truncated close season because there's so many players being away at the World Cup. But then I have to go sort of glass half full and say, well, if you are a really good manager, somehow you should be up to the challenge, be able to go in there and not make United world beaters straight away, but somehow steady everything I'm talking about. The sort of short, close season, maybe your captain leaving, the fact that you've got Ratcliffe there. It's all, everywhere you look, it seems like there's issues there, which some of them are needless. Yeah, this whole structure thing getting in the way, and it's needless, isn't it? The structure's supposed to be working for the club, not against the guy who's in charge of the team, which it seems to be doing.
Yeah. And another name that's now being spoken about more is Marcus Rashford and his future. He and Amrin clearly didn't get along. a new manager could be a big fan. Imagine if it is Thomas Tuchel, for example. But according to reports, his loan club Barcelona, they want to keep him. He's keen to stay, but the La Liga side have got no plans to simply pay this €30 million option to buy without first proposing a more economical option like a second loan. I mean, we know Barcelona are notorious at this point for their financial issues, their struggles when it comes to new signings, registering players. But for Manchester United, they will surely want this sale in the summer.
Yeah, because I'm not sure he wants to go back there anyway. I can't remember, is it about 26 million, is it? This release clause 25. I mean, that's actually relative, chicken feed. But as you just said there, Angelina, because their money's sort of a little bit, let's say, stricken, yeah, it might end up being a sale over a favorable way of payments for Barcelona, sort of stretching it out. But again, what happened with Marcus Rashford at Manchester United? You know, the kid was obviously grew up as a fan, you know, lived the dream, and here we are. I mean, you know, it's such a shame. So again, I mean, the one, you know, obviously Tuchel's picked him for England, right? So I'm just trying to think what scenario might sort of have him back at. But as I understand it, maybe there might be still resistance in the hierarchy anyway. So it was an Amorim thing, but it was also Wilcox thing as well. So, you know, that's also a factor. So yeah, I mean, they would want a sale. Again, it's going to make yet another interesting summer covering the club. You know, as you and I both know, it's pretty mad, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, you know, Joshua Zirkzee was linked with a move to Roma, but it seems like that deal has collapsed. It looks like Aston Villa's Daniel Marlin is set to move there instead. We've also heard talk about Kobbie Mainoo maybe leaving the club, but that they do want to keep hold of him. In terms of, you know, Old Trafford and their business, do you see anything actually happening in January? Because you've also got former Wolves midfielder Ruben Neves has been a name mentioned, but with everything that's going on, you know, some people have hinted that maybe Ineos are just going to kind of hide behind this and think, well, we can get away with not really spending anything and trying to block that exit door.
Yeah, I mean, I reported yesterday or the day before that there is money for Carrick if it's a target who's on their list anyway. Could be done. So Neves is one who's on their list. I think that deal would be between 20 and 30 million. I think there's money for that, but he's out of contract in the summer. But from what I'm told from Saudi Arabia, he might. I'm not saying he will. He might sign a new contract and stay there. But he's 28. Don't know what you think of him as a player, but I don't think he would do any harm to your squad if he was signed. I think he'd probably enhance it. So that's one to keep an eye on. Yeah, going back to Zirkzee, listen, I think, you know, given, I'm just trying to work out with regard to the forwards they've got there, they probably would allow him to go. I mean, Amorim was saying basically no players can go out because of the sort of African Cup of Nations, but two of the players are back now, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of problem has gone away. Mainoo's an interesting one, and this was another bone of contention between Amorim and Wilcox. Amorim obviously didn't fancy him, but you know, I was told that actually that they think there's a player there, they don't want to sell him because he might outlast the coach, and that's been proven. Yeah. So, you know, when it's the Manchester derby on Saturday, I'm really looking forward to seeing him hopefully start. I don't think he's the answer to all of United's problems, but I do think he makes United a better player, a better team. So I don't think he'll be going anywhere. But yeah, I mean, Amorim understood that about the sort of Mainoo thing, and I think it was just another. I mean, if you look back at Amorim, he made a lot of mistakes. Really, it was just a very, very odd sort of 14 or 15 months. I mean, Zirkzee, I know that wasn't his signing, but again, he looks an okay player. I don't want to be rude about the gentleman, but he's not an amazing player, is he? And he's just one more sort of like iffy player bought. And so I just wonder what's going to happen this summer. You know, they seem to have got it right last summer, except for they signed one too many number 10s in one of Mbeumo or Cunha, when maybe you should have got a central midfielder. And, you know, it was interesting. When Amorim got sacked, they let it be known that actually he was behind the transfer policy, Amorim. I was thinking, really? Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? I agree with Zirkzee, the whole, you know, 9.5 thing. It is a little bit confusing. And again, it's more, again, not to be rude about him, but for me, it's a bit more dead wood that they are going to have to clear eventually. Quickly switching to the blue side of the city, we will, you know, I begrudgingly will talk about Manchester City. No, I'm joking, but you know, they're preparing to make an offer for Crystal Palace's Mark Gay before the end of the January transfer window, but are unlikely to meet Palace's asking price of above £35 million. Do you think this deal could happen? Because the way I look at it, you know, for Mark Gay as a player, it is a risk. He's got guaranteed playing time at Palace as the centre-back, as the captain. It's a World Cup year. Don't really want to derail things. So do you actually think that this could happen?
It depends. Again, you get it completely right. As I understand it, it depends on the player. So they want about 40 million, which is sort of 5 million more than they agreed with Liverpool, because their attitude, Palace, is they have to replace him if he goes, and they'll be in the same boat in having to pay an inflated fee. I think they want him. It was interesting. Listen, it's a very small sample size, but Max Alleyne, since he came back from Watford, has looked very good in 3 games. I did the game at the weekend. I mean, I know it was a 10-1 roasted, but he was really, really smooth, and he was yet last night against Newcastle. But yeah, I think they do want him. I think, from as I understand it, it'd be a surprise again if he does move in January, because, again, what he just said, you know, he may well look at it and think, well, it's not only City, but I've got Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Barcelona. I go to the World Cup, do well there.
World's my oyster.
Yeah. My salary demand goes up, etc., etc. On the other hand, I think the only thing that might sway him is if he looks at it and thinks, well, if I join now, I'll win a title potentially with City. I know they're not leading in Arsenal, etc. But I don't know. I mean, it's difficult in transfers because things can change all the time, unless they turn around and make him an offer, which you don't really do this season, to sort of not break their pay structure, but to make him, you know, he's never going to touch Haaland. He's on ridiculous money. But I don't really see it happening. I'd be surprised.
Do you know if they have any backups? Because they've still got a fair amount of injury concerns at centre-back.
Well, I think that's why they brought Alleyne in, because I think Ake was one who might have left as well, but I don't think he'll leave now. So then if you look at Ake, Alleyne, let me get this right, Kushanov, and that's about it, right? So this is why they are looking around. There's another young lad who was on the bench, I forget his name, on Saturday, who's played a couple of times. So that's why I think they're pushing for it. In terms of backup made, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think it's difficult. I think they want to get someone in, a bit like what we're talking about at United and long-term targets being available in January. I think it's either Gay or bust, just because of the quality of him. Yes.
Yeah. And finally, Xabi Alonso, he obviously left his role as Real Madrid manager this week. Thinking about what the future could hold for him, because there were stories last month that Manchester City were looking at replacements for Pep Guardiola should he leave at the end of the season. Enzo Maresca's name was obviously mentioned. As soon as the Xabi Alonso news broke, I thought he's definitely not coming to Man United. Absolutely not. But could Alonso maybe be on Man City's list?
It's a really good question. I think so, because not only is he a winner and you know, been at Real Madrid and did what he did in Germany, but I think his persona is quite a calm, measured. And I always remember when Mancini was the manager of Manchester City, there was the same people in charge as it is now. So for Khaldan Al-Mubarak, there's a chairman. You know, they really, I know he won the title with the Aguero thing, but they didn't particularly, they viewed him as a sort of a story machine for the wrong reasons, because he's quite temperamental. And I think Alonso is obviously the opposite. So I definitely see that. I mean, that's the sort of, going back, you know, as I referred to Gay on the playing side, that's the sort of level of manager they would be interested in. And I don't know about you, but instinctively, if I think about him compared to Maresca, I instinctively think Alonso is better and be more suited to City. Because I think Maresca, I get that Maresca, again, left Chelsea because he wanted to be the manager, but he seems to be a little bit more scattergun and less measured. Now, listen, he might be able to, as he matures, you know, measure that out a little bit and be more composed. But I just feel like Alonso is a cool customer, and, you know, could walk into City because he was a great player and all the rest of it. In a way, he's a bit like Guardiola, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, the midfielder and, you know, really, really sort of Rolls Royce footballer who's done it as a coach as well. So I think it's a very interesting call, that. And he'd obviously get the stability and also actually the structure that he didn't get at Real Madrid, probably scuppered him there. You know, this sort of whole player power thing. They wouldn't stand for that at City. It really is the manager what wags the sort of tail, if I could put it that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think he definitely could be an option. But thank you so much for chatting to me, Jamie. Don't forget, the Manchester derby is at Old Trafford. It's live and exclusively on talkSPORT at 12:30 on Saturday. Jamie, you'll be there for the Guardian. I'll be listening to it, you know, with nerves an absolute dozen, because I just don't know what to expect. It could be one of those magical moments because stranger things have happened, but it also could be a hammering for Manchester United. So you enjoy that. I don't know if I will. And for all of the latest transfer stories, you can check out Alex Crook's transfer notebook on the website talksport.com. You have been watching The Window on talkSPORT, brought to you by Intuit Quickbooks. Save time and unlock growth with integrated business tools and AI automation, all in one place.